Yes, we have, boys and girls. Look at what we have found. We have found a pride of lions called the Nkuhuma Pride. It's a pride of 11 lions, 5 adults and 6 youngsters, and only one of them is a boy. Poor boy, don't you think? So what do you think, boys and girls from Shelton Park, Longdale and White Oak Elementaries? What are your thoughts about seeing your first lion? Or have you seen a lion before, I wonder? And if you have, let us know. Tell us what you think. Send us some questions. These are the largest carnivores on the African continent, and they are very, very lazy at the moment. And as we guessed it, there's a little puddle of water very close by. There's a little puddle of water just here, about 30-40 meters away, so it's a good chance that they moved here to drink, because we did spend some time with them last night where they hunted and killed a very beautiful antelope called a kudu, which I'll try to find a picture for you if you've never seen one before. And Taylor's correct in saying they will eat a warthog, but a warthog will not go very far in this big pride. 11 animals, they can feed on a lot of meat in one go, and so the warthog would just cause them to fight more than they would actually eat. So I know up in the Musk we've spent some time. There's a pride up there that spends a lot of time with warthog, and they eat them quite savagely. So here I can show a little picture in the front here. Here we've got a small photograph on screen here of female kudus. You can see them over here on the right hand side. A very nice sort of stripe pattern there. And it's a good chance that these lions killed a sort of a sub-adult, so probably about twice as big as that youngster there, because the bones, they really ate most of the bones. There wasn't much in the way of meat left. Okay, so we are going to go over to Taylor, who happens to have found a very water-loving bird. Yes, we have got a voracious predator, once again, that we can see, boys and girls, is lying extremely flat. Now, this is what lions do for a large portion of their day. They sleep between 15 and 20 hours a day. And yes, Dave, you want to know, do lions only eat meat? And they do. They eat only meat. Every now and again, obviously, when they eat an animal, they eat the fur and the bones and sometimes even the hoof of those young animals. And so then you might see from time to time, oh, look how cute that is. He's giving himself a little cuddle. You might see them eating grass from time to time, and that's to cause them to vomit, to throw up a fur ball that's full of fur and bones that they took in from when they were feeding. Because although these animals look very, very peaceful right now, when they are feeding at the dinner table, they are very, very noisy, and they're fighting each other all the time for as much meat as they can get into their tummy at one go. And that is what causes them to sleep for so long, because they eat so much meat, makes them very tired digesting the meat, and so they just sleep. I'm sure many of you, after Thanksgiving, you have that very big dinner. All you want to do is go and sleep, I'm sure. Now, Michaela, you want to know how fast lions run. Lions can run at a charging speed of about 21 feet a second. So if I work that out into miles, it's at about 42 odd miles an hour. It is very quick, but they are sprinters. They cover very short distance, and if they miss the animal they're trying to hunt, they'll often leave and stop. They don't chase it for very far, so the object of the lion is to try to get as close as they possibly can, between 15 and 20 yards before that explosive sprint out of the blocks, to then try and catch whatever it is that they have. And what these guys did last night is we followed them, and we saw them walk into the bushes, and they spotted something we couldn't see, and then some of the lionesses went around the other side and then chased the kudu directly back towards the others that were waiting for them. And with their big claws and their very big, powerful legs and chests, they're able to grab things and pull them to the ground. And with their very, very sharp teeth, they are then able to, sad as it might sound, rip the animal apart. It's their own knife and fork, you could say. They've evolved with their own knives and forks in their mouth. There is quite an old lioness. You can see by the size, and the nose is very dark as well. Mr. Sneed, you want to know how big lions get? And the average female lioness gets up to about close to 300 pounds, which is an enormous weight, whereas a male can get up to, let me work it out, close to 450, maybe 500 pounds. So that is about as big as they can get, but that is an enormous animal. If you work out that they can run at 45 odd miles an hour and they weigh that much, there's not many things out there that are able to get away when the lion catches them. So they are very, very powerful. And the benefit that the lions have is that they are in groups. So it's not just one of them. There's a whole pride that is willing to jump on the back of whatever it is they are hunting. So their combined weight and strength is what enables them to take much larger prey than they would do if they were on their own. A warthog would be a fantastic meal for a single lioness or for two, but as I said before, in a pride this size, a warthog would just cause them all sorts of naughtiness between each other. So they need larger prey like wildebeest, buffalo, zebra, and these lions are a very, very successful pride when it comes to hunting buffalo. You wouldn't think that they're dangerous though, would you? Who wants to go and scratch him under the chin there? Anybody? I wouldn't advise doing it. It seems very tempting. And you see the grass moving there with the deep breaths that they're having. It's not very hot at the moment. It's only 29 degrees Celsius and 81 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a rather cool afternoon, but yet it is still very difficult for them to move because they save condition. Mrs. Hubble, the male lions, you want to know where they are, and I'm actually not sure. In the Sabi Sands itself, the male lions are sort of covering most of the prides of females, and so I think they're somewhere to the southeast, quite a few kilometers away from here at the moment. But there's no real reason for them to be hanging around these females at the moment. None of them are actually reproductive right now, and that is normally the purpose of the males hanging around the pride, is for reproduction. But at the moment they are moving around looking for all sorts of other fertile females. But they will be coming back soon, because one of these females had some cubs, and the last of her cubs has disappeared recently. We're not sure where. There was a confrontation of other males that came into the area, and that cub has not been seen since. And I think that was about a week and a half ago, plus minus maybe 2 weeks. And within a month of that cub dying, that female will potentially come into estrus, so into sort of her breeding cycle, and that will very, very likely attract the dominant males to come back into the area to sort of facilitate that. But when the males hang out with the pride, they actually cause all sorts of trouble because they are very competitive and they want all the food for themselves. And when you're much bigger than the females, you're normally allowed to have it, but it doesn't come without clawing and fighting and a punch or two thrown. And quite often these females can get injured when trying to compete with the big males, so they invariably just leave them alone and move off to hunt their own food. There you can see that female in the front there. She's got a gash on her back hip. That was healing very nicely the other day. And since then, this pride was seen interacting with another pride. And it was just north of our boundary, Miss Sheely. And so that individual, that wound, which was very, very bad a number of months ago, was almost healed the other day. But you can see it's ripped open again. And it's looking quite fresh once again. But you can't imagine it was the size of an American football, that gash on the leg there. And it is closed and it's looking far better than it did. But with the confrontation with the lions the other day, it seems to have reopened itself. Yes, they do. We were actually with these lions last night. at a dam further north from here, and the Egyptian geese were getting very upset at the lions that were looking them up and down. And the lions were also looking at some of the hippos that were in the dam, thinking that could be an easy meal, but definitely not. Mr. Smead, you would like to know how big lions' feet are. Ferg's going to try and get you a shot of the lion's back foot. There's the back foot there. And I'm going to have to try and figure this out for you in a mathematical term so that it's easier to understand. But the lion's feet maximum that the female lion's feet can get to is about 13 centimeters, and males get up to about 15 centimeters. So almost the size of a normal human being's hand, a little bit smaller, but almost the same size as that. And it is just packed with muscle. Very, very strong. And the pads are there, very characteristic lions or cats' feet. I can show you on a picture in a moment, if we can't get a better picture there. Not showing them very clearly in the grass. How inconvenient these lions are being. We're just trying to have a look. Here we go, Ferg. This one on the left has shown us. This one just far on the left has shown us a foot. Far on the left, Ferg. Here we go. That one's just shown us the bottom of the foot. See if we can get it. Can you see there that the back of the bottom of the foot has got that very characteristic 3 lobes? And that is the back pad, and then they got the 4 toes. And that is what we look for in a track when we're looking for lion or leopard versus something like a hyena, which has only got 2 lobes. All cats have got 3 lobes in the back of their foot. Why that is, I cannot tell you. It's just the way they've been designed. And the pads allow for silent movement. And like most cats, except for the cheetah, the lions are able to take their claws inside. They're called protractile. A lot of people think that they're retractable claws like Wolverine, but they're actually protractile because they need to be forced out to be used, and then they naturally go back inside. So they need to be kept inside and sheathed inside the pad itself to keep them sharp for when they catch their prey. They're able to pull them down. So that is awesome to see the lion's feet. And let's go over to Tristan Dix, who I think is playing in the sand. For some reason, boys and girls, have decided to get up and do some stretches. There's one standing up. And normally what happens when they stand up, it's because they need a little bit of a toilet break. And some of them are rude. They don't go very far. They'll go right there next to their sisters. There's a little bit of wind blowing. And this one lioness, can you see how she's looking? She's got quite a bit of intention on her face. Any animals could be moving at this time. And if they did come anywhere near, the lions would probably try and hunt them. They are very opportunistic. They'll always try and catch something if it makes itself available. I think the wind and the temperature is just at such a perfect level that the lions might start moving now, or they might lie down again. Aaron, you want to know why lions sleep so long? Well, they have a very high protein diet, and it requires a lot of energy to digest it. So, like I mentioned before, after your Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, when you've eaten one too many pieces of meat, you have to go and have a nap, don't you? And there's nothing nicer than a long nap after a big meal. And that's exactly what the lions do. Once their bellies are full, they don't need to do anything else. What's going on? What's going on, guys? Something in the wind. Did you hear something, Ferg? Do you see how quickly they stood up there? I've no idea what that was. But quickly they forget all about it. Sometimes just one of them might get a bit of a spook, and the movement of it gets them all up. You can see the young boy is on the right there, busy cleaning his face. Look at those teeth. Look at those teeth when they yawn. Well, while we wait for these... Yes, well, we thought they were getting up, but all they've done is a little bit of a stretch, and There we go. Look at that yawn. Isn't that cute? It's a little youngster. But don't let it fool you, boys and girls. We were watching that youngster last night when they were eating that kudu. And they are very, very powerful young individuals who compete very fiercely for meat. And it's very important for them to do so, because if they don't compete, they won't have the strength to do their role as a lion, and the pride strength will always decrease. So the strength is important from a young age, even when they are cubs. Look at that yawn. It's probably going to stand up soon. That is the young male. Even when they are cubs, they compete for the milk from their mother. And if they're not strong enough to compete for milk, then they will not make it as an adult lion. They need to be very competitive from a young age. And because they are so competitive, then they have to be so loving and caring for each other the next day. Okay, well, we're going to stay here with these lions, and let's go over to Taylor, who has something that's a surprise with spots. And you are back with us. The lions are slowly getting up, and some are starting to move off. There's been a few toilet stops. Some of them have been lady enough to move off from the rest. The one on the right not being so ladylike. But one is starting to move. The wind is coming from our right-hand side, and it's a good chance the ladies are going to start moving in a sort of northerly direction from where we are now, sort of a northwest, and we might get them moving, which would be awesome. It's quite early in the afternoon, but because it's quite cool and because the conditions are very, very favorable, it's windy, it's overcast, it's an ideal time to do some hunting. They don't expend too much energy moving in these conditions. One of the lionesses has moved off ahead. I can't see where she's gotten to now. Oh, she's just standing in the road. Frank, I haven't seen any of the Birmingham boy males for some time, but just on our our southwesterly sort of boundary, westerly boundary, I heard there was a report of 2 males there this morning. I'm not sure who they are exactly. They're not the Birmingham boys. They're not the Evoker males. I think Brent was with one of them last night, and now there are 2 there at the moment. So they would only cause trouble if they came around here, and there could be a whole lot of drama if they do move into the area, as there are some youngsters in this pride, like the one you see in the picture, that will get properly beaten by a big adult male. And if those males call, you will very invariably see this pride of lions moving in the opposite direction. So it looks like they're slowly moving towards the road there. I'm going to move up. Fergie, should we wait here or should we move up? Wait for a second, because there's some stretching happening, some cuddling happening. And there's some bites on the neck, and this is playtime. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? This is the favorite time with lions, when they start being very playful and loving with each other. But they're going to do some grooming. They're going to start moving soon. We'll stay with them. But while we do that, let's go over to Tristan and find out what he's going to be doing this afternoon. Moving at least 30 odd meters from where we had them before, about as far away as where we saw them this morning on foot, Ferg and myself. And we have got the majestic amber eyes here. And you might notice, and we were getting a bit worried because she was looking straight through us a moment ago. We moved forward. But what she is in fact doing is she's looking at some vultures in the sky. And we'd love to show you the vultures, but because you've got the roof on, it's going to be very difficult to do that. We have the roof on in case of rain, but at least we know now she wasn't giving us a death stare. She was looking straight through us at the vultures. And it's not uncommon. I mean, we find predators and we find kills by following vultures. And I've seen lions do that on many occasions. I've even seen cheetah that as soon as a vulture arrives on the scene have abandoned their kill and left, because lions and hyenas are known to follow them in. Such a beautiful female, Amber Eyes, isn't she? I know she's a crowd favorite out there. Sir, you would like to know, very interesting question that a lot of people like to know, and it's got to do with cubs in a pride and when will males leave them alone. Well, while they are cubs and while they are forcing their parents or their mother to suckle, they will kill them. Invariably, some males don't kill cubs, but it can happen anywhere up to about 15 months, 18 months. After that, females that are left in the pride actually become sexually viable and so might be allowed to stay in the pride, and any young male would be forced out, chased away. But it's for the 2 years after breeding that females will not have cubs while they have their youngsters with them. So by killing any cub up till 2 years, will bring that female back into estrus. So it's got to be around that sort of time. And obviously, if the female comes into estrus a bit earlier and the males come in and find her in estrus, there's no need to kill her cubs, even if they are still a little bit young. But invariably, it's between about maybe 16, 18 months to maybe almost 2 years, somewhere around there. I don't think it's a fixed number, but it's also not always the case. Males don't always kill cubs, but it is more common in the population due to the fact that a male that kills cubs breeds more than a male that does not. So we're being joined in the sighting by one of the Djuma vehicles. So if you do see or hear a vehicle, well, that is them. Amber Eyes is checking them out, seeing what it is that they're doing, making sure her pride is still good and happy. And so far, everything is good. One has gone down to the water to drink. Another one is on its way. Do you want to go check it out, Fergie? Oh, are we going to just disturb them too much if we move too much? Okay. Yes, the pupils are so small because of the dilation that they're able to do. The light is very, very bright. We were looking at these lions last night with the infrared, and the pupils were completely enlarged, covering the entire eye. Or maybe not the entire eye, but that is one of the things predators or nocturnal predators are able to do, is they're able to change or control the dilation of that pupil. So when the light is strong like it is now, it's not that strong to be honest, but when it's quite strong or light, their pupils get very small, allowing in a very small amount of light. And as they go and the darkness prevails, the pupils become a lot bigger. So I don't know if any of you have got a domestic cat at home, but my cat I used to have, whenever it used to come from outside and suddenly materialize inside, it would arrive in with these shockingly enormous pupils. And it was always quite something to behold, how the cat also seemed very on edge. It's been out in the wilderness, out in the dark, and the pupils are completely enlarged. But soon and quickly they sort of go back to their smallness due to the lights inside. So the pupil is like a shutter on a camera. The wider it is, the more light it lets in. So obviously when it's darker, they need to open the... You are back with us, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got the most sensational visual of the Nkuhumas and a rainbow. Isn't that fantastic? Some of them have got their heads up. I'm not sure if something's moving off to our right-hand side. Seem to be losing interest in whatever it is, and heads are back down again. I think something might have twitched in the long grass. The wind has died down quite substantially. And we are alone once again with the Nkuhuma lions. Ah, that was hard work. Sorry about my big head getting in the shot. Holly, yes, lions and leopards do have dew claws. There you can see it. That is the most important. Well, can you see it? Just above the... Can you see it? Ah, it's just turned. She's going to turn all the way over and not show it to us. It's kind of like that thing quite high up on the wrist, which is the most important claw. There we go. You can see it right in the middle of the screen now. That sort of inside toe. That one Fergus is focusing on right there. You can see a pad just to the left of it, and there's a little pinch there. The claw comes out of that. That is a very important claw when it comes to catching and pulling down. There, you see where that pad is on the top left. There's that pad just to the right of that and up. Whereas the dew claw is inside there. It's kind of quite high up on the wrist, sort of like our thumb would be. If you consider the 4 toes you can see there of the lion, and then that pad high up on the top, that is essentially what would be the thumb or the big toe on the foot, and the claw comes out of that toe itself. Very important when it comes to grabbing and pulling down prey. I've seen a lion do a backward somersault as an impala jumped over its head, and just the dew claw caught the inside of the impala's leg and managed to pull it down, meandering into this sighting. I was once on a walk, and we were on a bit of a game path in quite a thick sort of vegetated area, or should I say riverine area with tall trees, and this warthog came sauntering down this game path towards us. We just all sat down and kept very still, and the warthog got to within about maybe 4 or 5 meters from us before realizing something was amiss. But it took a while for it to realize that anything was too much amiss before it moved off. So that was quite a marvelous thing to see. But as it got closer and closer, the tusks got bigger and brighter and more sort of dangerous in their look. And so it definitely was something, when it got closer and closer, you start thinking, is this a good idea? Because when an animal suddenly gets too close, where the only option is to either run away or to defend itself, you would hope the warthog chooses the first of those options. Oh, that was very hard work for that young male. Still too early for him. Oh, way too early to be getting up. We thought they were getting up and going to move, and all they've done is move about 30-odd yards towards the road. Not quite sure what the movements were, but there they are. And now all very flat lions, still digesting the remains of their kudu from last night. As a few drops of rain start to fall down, we are now very fortunate that we put on our roof. Any of you out there heard the term monkey's wedding before? It's something I grew up with knowing very well in Johannesburg. You get the light shining, or in the afternoon you get these beautiful sunsets, and as the sun is setting you get rain. And we always call that a monkey's wedding, because it's raining above your head but yet the sun is shining, which is what you would assume wedding, for everything to be upside down. You know it too, Bex. I don't know where it comes from, but I've known it from a child. But I assume it's got to do with the fact that at a monkey's wedding everything would be a little bit upside down, hence the rain on a sunny day. Is that a Alanis Morissette song? I don't know. And you can still see she's relatively full. Bex is suggesting that Ferg and I do some karaoke. I don't think that's the best idea at the moment, Bex, but I have no doubt at the end of the show you're going to give us another sing-along on the radio on our drive back, like you did that Elvis song last time, which was a marvelous attempt. Yes, she is. Now that is Amber Eyes there. She's quite easy to identify on the belly. She's got 4 very noticeable mammary glands present, and she is the only lioness of this pride, I believe, that has yet to successfully rear any cubs. I know the other female, the younger one, she's had some difficulty with her cubs with white muscle disease, and now with her remaining youngster disappearing with the arrival of the evoker males, we can only assume that it is related to that. It is what the males would have done. Very sad, to be honest, but you can see there's Amber Eyes. Beautifully round tummy of her kudu. And so while we look at our lions longer, let's go over to Taylor with a perfect sunset. And we have still got some very flat cats. So there's some comments about the greenery of the Sabi Sands and these areas, the Kruger National Park and the greater surrounds go through dry and wet spells. They talk about 18-year cycles, and we've come from a dry cycle and we're looking to go back into hopefully a wet one. And to be seeing the Sabi Sands this green this time of year, I don't know if it's uncommon, but I think everybody's used to it being so dry. The last few years has been very, very dry down here, and it's nice to see a bit more rain. Hopefully it will build up the insect populations, because as we've noticed, there hasn't been a huge bloom of insects, as is normally the case in summer months. But with a number of years of drought, populations of insects will go down, but they are very, very quick to regenerate. And any ones that regenerated this year will have bred, laid eggs, and even the rain we're experiencing now will often stimulate them to recoup and to regenerate again. So getting another life cycle, another entire group going through, adults to eggs, and that is one of the reasons why we have got so many of the migratory birds still around, because the temperatures haven't changed too much, and there is still an abundance of food. So a lot of those migratory birds are staying around to fatten themselves up on insects like these lions have done on the kudu. But the birds need to build up their weight, pick up huge amounts of weight before flying ever north for breeding or not breeding. But it is, in my opinion, wonderful to see how green it is this time of year. And I know Tristan would like it to be dry again, Brent would as well, because it is much easier to find cats when the conditions are very dry and animals start to struggle. You get lots more drama, lots more activity. But we need to go through these cycles. These wet periods allow the herbivore animals to build up condition, to get stronger. Doesn't affect the lions too much. Just means that they don't eat as much as they would, because the prey animals are a little bit fitter than they would have been. Not for the kudu last night, though. It's quite awesome to spend time with lions in their first attempt at a hunt. They are successful. It's not normally like that. Quite often they can hunt 7 or 8, 9 times and miss each time. I think the youngsters were hungry, because when we watched the adults go off-road, the youngsters stayed very still at the back, almost as if they had been given a warning. You move and you will not eat. And so they behaved very well, and they were rewarded for it. What a beautiful stretch that is. What a life, ladies and gentlemen. What a life. Flat cats, not a worry in the world. Not sure if you can hear the sounds behind us of the francolins and the spurfowl starting to come together for the evening into their coveys, to roost down for the evening. They've done their feeding for the day, and before the light fades and the sun sets, they will close down. And I can hear distance call of hyena in the distance. But as we have taken the precautions to have a roof, I believe Tristan is probably slowly going to make his way back to camp as the rain starts to come down on his head. They are not bothered, and it seems as if we are only getting spat on here a little bit. There's not much rain to speak of. So we do get what we call orographic rain in the Lowveld, which means it falls in very different places. Dale, the animals that enjoy wet and cold weather, elephants absolutely adore cool weather. They like moving around and feeding. Rhino as well. When it rains, though, a lot of animals, especially the ruminating animals, will often find, the animals that chew the cud will often find a spot to sort of lie down and find a patch where they can chew, where they can keep a warm or dry belly on the ground. And what I've often seen with lions and leopards is they just sit there in the rain and look very miserable. I've never seen them moving too much in the wet weather. They just sit down and sort of shelter themselves up. And most of your other hooved animals, the ruminants, as I said, the rain makes the ground quite slippery, so they tend to stay in place, chew the cud, drink whatever moisture comes down that's necessary, and just hopefully they don't get too wet. Lions I have seen shelter underneath trees and bushes trying to keep dry, but there's really not too much they can do when it starts to downpour, and even their footfalls in the mud can be quite slippery. Some of the tracks we were looking at this morning of where they had crossed some of the roads were of slippery tracks in the mud, so their feet are better adapted for the mud than the hoofed animals, but they also don't move too much in the rain. They can't really smell or hear too much, so the hunting is all about sight, and it is quite difficult to hunt when it is raining, but shortly after rain you might find that. Was that an elephant? A hyena calling behind us. I don't know how I thought that was an elephant, but I only have one ear that hears the ambience, and that's that individual that has got an injured eye. See if we can get in on that eye, Ferg. We were looking at it yesterday. It's got, I don't know what that is exactly. Her pupil itself looks fine. It almost looks like a tick, but I don't think it is a tick. It looks like she's got an injury to sort of like the tear duct area. I don't know. It looks uncomfortable. That didn't affect her performance last night, I don't believe. But definitely her right pupil, the one with that growth, was a little bit smaller than the other one. Ooh, wow. Look at that. Still a formidable female. That was a proper yawn indeed. So she heard the hyena, and I remember one of the evenings when Scott and Nikki and myself and a few of the other staff went out to look at the Nkuhumas, because this lioness was with Amber Eyes and the youngster, the smallest youngster that's not with us anymore, on quarantine. Oh, I think the whole pride is there actually. And this individual, she was the one who chased hyenas for over 100 to 200 meters. It was fantastic. Normally they just run and charge for about 20 meters, but she really gave it a good go. And you can see by her and these two youngsters' intentions that they're hoping a hyena is going to come. They would like to play some games. The two on the right, the youngsters, they would definitely like to play games with the hyena. I don't think that adult lioness will play any games. Excuse me, folks. Someone's just calling me on the radio. If you just give me one moment to find my radio, it'd be good. There's on my lap. Standing by. Animals are still lying up, same position. So one of the people who went for a little sundowner to watch that glorious sunset that Taylor was showing you is now interested, I think, to come back and see the lions, which is a very good thing to do while they are sleeping. Cherry eye. I believe everyone's saying cherry eye. I've never heard of that before. Ooh. Sorry, the autofocus was not liking you there, Ferg. Cherry eye. I've never heard of that before. Is that an eye infection, or is that caused? I thought maybe it was an injury through. What a yawn from the male, maybe the fighting with the male. But if it's something that happens due to some eye infection, cherry eye, I've never heard of that before. If that is something that happens to cats, then very interesting. Very, very interesting. Maybe she needs some of the wandering dew, the Commelina, this morning as an eye drop to treat that eye. That might be quite nice. I wonder if she would allow me to administer it without bearing those marvelously sharp canine teeth. I doubt it. Amazingly resilient, though, these cats. Those of you who've seen that injured female with the on the rump, how she's managed to... Oh, here's another yawn. If she doesn't get up in the next few seconds, I'll be quite surprised after 3 big yawns. It's amazing how resilient they are to injury. Small things like that, how easily they overcome them. Come on, tell me you're going to get up or you're going to lick your face. That's more important. The never-ending grooming, as they will gorge themselves again in the coming days. Seeing them last night when I left them off that kudu kill, how from shoulder to nose they were covered in blood. and they spend the remainder of the day cleaning all of that blood off. It's actually a good indication of how long ago they fed, by how busy they are grooming and how much matted blood is still on the face. First Lady, it doesn't appear to be able to affect her hunting at the moment. I mean, the one lioness with the very badly injured eye, she seems to do just fine. And this lioness, I mean, she seems to have good reaction out of that pupil. It's just a little bit of an irritation inside. So, truthfully, I don't know. But that youngster, just go left there, Fergie. She stood up and she just started urinating right where she stood. And she's practically urinating on her sister. That is revolting, young lady. You should get a spanking for that. That was not a very ladylike gesture at all. And now she's going to lie down again. Corin is telling us that cherry eye is a prolapse of the eyelid, or the tear duct. Did you say tear duct? Of the nectating membrane. Very interesting. I've never heard of that before, but I wonder if you can add more to that and tell me how damaging it is for the eye, and if it is going to go away naturally or if it's going to affect her in the long term. I wonder. That's very interesting. Thank you for that. So now she's flicking her tail in her own urine. Aren't you a marvelous beast? Yes, she is. Looking very proud of herself now. Okay, let's go over to Taylor and see how wet she's getting. Oh, yes, we are back. And this little youngster has done a stretch and now is going to do the rounds of rubbing heads against all of the adults until it finds a partner that will clean it. There we go. That's what I was looking for. It's trying to clean itself. It's going to do some more licking of itself, but it's trying to clean itself, and then obviously those areas on the back, which are quite difficult to get to, that's when you need to find the assistance of mum. We are in infrared, so that is why the light looks like it does, and for some reason the lions have stood up, and I don't know what they're doing. They suddenly are going to walk right past the car. There's the beautiful stretch. Ooh. Makes me feel good when they do that. Sorry about my head. I'm trying to also see what might be behind us. I'm sorry about my hat. I don't know what is behind us. The water is there. Well, she's going to have a pee. Little toilet ablution stop. Sorry about my head. I'm trying very hard not to get in the way here. It's just how close they are. Mary, the lions do know that we're here. They just don't know what we are. We're a box that smells of petrol and is green and makes a noise that they've become familiar with, and it doesn't pose any threat and doesn't provide them with food. If, for example, we had to feed these lions off of a vehicle like this, they would associate this vehicle with food, and then we would have a problem. But because they've received no negative feedback from us, then they basically just carry on with what is going on in their daily life. But if I had to step out, I mean, I have no door here. This lion is about 2.5, 3 meters from me. If I had to step out, she would suddenly see the bipedal human, the two-legged upright standing human being, and it would either cause her to run away or to attack, because suddenly I'm in a comfort zone, a critical zone. If any of you are watching this morning, you'll notice that we got to about maybe 40 yards from these lions, and they weren't really reacting too much. They've gotten quite used to being tracked on foot, but anywhere closer than that, they will respond, and they've got plenty of time to move away when you approach them on foot from a distance. But if I suddenly step out now into their critical zone, she will have to respond in some way. And it will either be a runaway or an aggressive response. So it is very important not to step out of the car now. And for those of you who've been on game drive before, you will understand that many times your guide has said, please do not stand up and do not show your legs, because by standing up, the lions suddenly see the human shape inside of the green petrol-smelling box, and it causes instinctively them to change their behavior. Because it's my belief that lions don't see things directly, they see shapes. They see an impala shape, they see a kudu shape, they see a buffalo shape, they see a human form. They don't see the definition of it, they see the shape. And as soon as that shape reveals itself, it causes an instinctive reaction inside their brain that they react to. They are looking up to the sky. I don't know what. Maybe the lions are doing some astrology this evening. Well, let's go back over to Taylor, who hopefully is not too wet, and see how her fast five goes. Beautiful shadows here as this adult and oldest member of the Nkuhumas starts to scent mark. Do you see her scratching her back legs as she urinated? It's a classic sign of territorial behavior. And yes, the lionesses are the territorialists of the pride, where the male lions dominate more than one pride, so they cover a far greater area. But it's important for these females to scratch every now and again and assert their dominance on their pride lands. And a couple of them started getting up and moving, two of the adult lioness, this one included. So we moved back to the 30 yards away that they were at earlier, and now this one has decided it's now time to groom. So the wind has completely died down. We're still in infrared. So what direction the lions will move in is very hard to say. I wonder if you can hear the hyenas. She certainly can. She's looking in the direction the hyenas are calling. And that's the look she said. That's what I think of hyenas, yes. Suddenly a little bit of wind came in there. You saw how she lifted her nose. I felt that breeze against the side of my face. It's a marvelous set of teeth you have there, my dear. And another lioness is going to come and join her. There'll be the characteristic head rub. If any of you have got domestic cats at home, you'll know your cat likes to rub its face against your legs. And one of the funniest things I used to see with my cat was that often it would rub against the couch and then against the curtain, and obviously the curtain being a lot softer than the couch, it would often fall on its face, which was always quite humorous for me. And you can see the size comparison of mum and daughter. Kalena, I've never noticed or seen a cat scent mark a vehicle before in my life. No, I've never seen that before. I don't think they see us as an object to scent mark on. But that would be a first indeed. Okay, so now that is number 2, lioness up and mobile. So I think we're going to
screeching on that side.
Start our engines shortly. Katie, there certainly is a difference between urinating and scent marking. You saw what she was doing there when she scratched her feet. Lions and leopards will scratch their feet on the ground to turn over the loose soil. And I don't know if you've ever dug in the garden before, but if you smell the ground, if you just put your face down to the ground in the morning, do that tomorrow if you like, smell the ground and then go and and then dig the ground over and then smell it again. There's a lot more fragrance, there's a lot more sort of holding capacity as well. And so lions and leopards will often scratch their feet, turn in the soil over, and then urinate on top of that. Rhino do a very similar sort of thing, and that seems to hold the smell longer, and it also catches the smell on the back of their feet. So when they walk, it gives them something to follow when they are trying to find their pride members, or when male lions leave territorial trails, it kind of forms a boundary mark around their territory. The same as in the case of a rhino, you can actually follow that line. Well, we can't really, but another male rhino walking in will actually hit that barrier, almost like a wall, knowing exactly what's passed along that line. Whereas before we saw some of them standing up and just drizzling the urine down in a normal sort of squatting pose without the scratching of the back legs. Beautiful youngster, some amazing lighting, nice shadows, watching intently to see if those adult lionesses are actually going to be moving off. This is kind of the intention you see when the adults move off, the youngsters wait at the back. And so what Craig and I saw last night, we saw at least 4 of the youngsters sitting like this in the darkness, intention in one direction, listening, waiting patiently, and then the kudu bark followed by the running and the death bellow, which is always quite something to experience and so difficult to film out here in the thick bush of the Sabi Sands. So you might be able to see most of the feeding, but to see the takedown, wow, very, very difficult unless it's in an open area. Okay, well, we're going to stay with these lions again, see what they get up to, and let's go over to Taylor and see what she's spotting with her spotlight. First thing we do actually is a yawn, then we get up, then we do a stretch. Oh, I thought she was going to do it for us. She's going to go behind the car, and then you're going to see my head, and now we're going to see the lions again. They are slowly moving what seems to be right behind the car here, and they have stopped just over here. Slowly are moving. Okay, so they're moving in a sort of easy direction. We're going to see if we can stick with them again. Some of them are being quite lazy, the others are moving up ahead. Same as last night. Let's see if we can follow them for a little bit and see what it is they get up to. At the moment, I have still got lions behind my car. It's difficult for me to move. And they are listening to the sounds of the night, which I'm going to allow you all to do for a brief moment. It's a very still evening. I'm listening for the faintest of sounds. The wind we had earlier has completely disappeared. You can see the grass there in front of that female is just moving slightly. Wonderful shadows there. Okay, well, let's go over to Taylor and see if she can get one last critter for the night. Yes, we do. We have the lions. They're right in front of us. We're being joined in the sighting by one of the other guides from Djuma. And look at this being very quiet, sitting here, seeing if we can see or hear what they hear. What a cameo performance for these guys. Apologies for the poles, but we do have our roof on, and we are surrounded by lions at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, which is absolutely marvelous. There's a couple of little puddles just next to us here. Maybe I can just assist in lighting that up. It has been a fantastic afternoon. A little bit of rain, a little bit of sunshine, bushwalk with warthogs, leopards, Hosanna doing his thing. Look at that marvelous jump. That was an Olympic medal jump right there. It's been a marvelous afternoon from all of us here at Djuma in the Sava Sands, myself, Fergus, Tristan, Taylor and Epsi. We do thank you for joining us on this marvelous afternoon game drive safari, and we have got the lions here, and we are going to say a good night to you, and thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you bright and early for safari in the morning. Have a good evening and good night.